Hello, entrepreneurs. Good evening. It's a beautiful Monday night here in downtown Flushing, New York, and I am here with a special guest, Khara Croswaite Brindle,
Hi,
who is
everyone.
who is really high up on my whatever it is my radar because she just like hit a nerve, and she's going to talk to us tonight about, the problem that I think all entrepreneurs suffer from, which is perfectionism, workaholism. I didn't even know that I had these maladies, but I do, and it explained a lot. So thank you, Khara. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your information with us.
Sure. Thanks, Joe, for having me. I appreciate it. You want me to go ahead and share?
So wait, let's tell everybody, a little bit about who you are and what you do, because I know that, so you're a therapist,
I
licensed,
am.
but you're a major entrepreneur, which is unique. So
Well, thank you. Yeah, I wear lots of hats. I think I would self-identify as a serial entrepreneur, as I know, Joe, that you do also. I think I've moved further into the burnout consultation work. So this is very relevant. I think in the middle of COVID, we all have a lot that we're trying to navigate. So it's never boring. Love my jobs, and I have quite a few of them.
yeah, so you built your therapy practice. I mean, you have like 5 or 6 therapists under you, correct?
Yes. So there's 5 other licensed clinicians that are working as contractors. Absolutely.
Okay, clinicians. That's the word I was thinking of. So most people, most businesses, and that's my thing. I'm a business junkie. I'm
Right.
obsessed with business, and it was shocking for me to find out that most businesses not only don't succeed, they never even get past themselves. We stay as solopreneurs. And I believe that what you're going to talk about now has a lot to do with that. And I appreciate, because I know a little bit about how you put this together, and I believe that you put it together for me.
Yes.
Right?
I did, just for you, Joe.
and people like me, solopreneurs, there's millions of them out there. And
yeah.
We're all like floating around. Sometimes we don't know what's going on. We're getting bombarded. So maybe you could tell us, like, the warning signs and what you've learned.
Yeah, I think this is coming up a lot lately, especially for those who are individuals on their own, solo practices. It's pretty lonely to do this on our own. I've noticed that as a therapist, which is why the group practice was created. It's like, I could do this all day, but am I enjoying that isolation? And isolation is a big part of COVID. So some of the warning signs we're tracking are sleep disruption and not eating very much, or maybe we're eating too much. People are reflecting on lack of energy. I had a conversation today with someone who said, I don't have very much compassion for others right now. Like, they have just like a short fuse and no tolerance for complaining. And so it's like, oh, yeah, those are signs of burnout, when we're just not feeling very good and we just don't feel like ourselves at all.
Yeah, and it creeps up on you, and I'm involved in a lot. Thank God I don't know what I would have done had I not been connected with so many people online before COVID.
Right.
Because, just talking, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going through the same thing. I forgot what day it is, and self-care has become like one of the pillars of my business now.
Right. And you actually, Joe, I haven't shared this yet, but I was working on a blog post today because I had an epiphany this weekend after a colleague said to me, you know what, Khara, what if working is your self-care? I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, well, you get such joy out of your projects and the things that you're working on. Is that in fact restorative, which would make it self-care? And I was like, wait a minute, what are you saying to me right now? So it's an interesting idea that I'm going to flush out and say, okay, have we mislabeled people workaholics that really find a lot of joy in their work? And is there a fine line between workaholism and being in good self-care because we like what we do.
I think that, you know, one thing that just stuck out, I don't know why, my grandparents, my grandfather worked in the city. He worked in a factory. He was like a steel guy, and he would come home, you know, he would leave at like 5 a.m, come home at like 6 p.m, and then go in the backyard to his garden.
And that was his self-care?
That it was joy. It was, you know, but at the time I didn't understand. I was like, why is he working? He just worked all day. Now he's going out to the garden. But I think, yeah, you hit on something there, your friend. I think that when you're in the zone, that's what my client Marissa calls it. She's like, you're in the zone, right?
Yeah, and if you're feeling joy in it, it doesn't feel nearly as exhausting as like a 9 to 5.
So now this is my question. So we get so wrapped up in this, and this is what happened. You know, like I think it was a couple of Thursdays ago. I woke up. I thought it was Thursday. It was Friday, and I was going back, and I was so wrapped up in what I was doing, I didn't realize that I passed out. You know, and that wasn't a good thing. I literally I started nodding out at my desk. How do you, like, where do you draw the line? How do you know that this is coming on?
Yeah, I mean, I think the key word there is balance, right? Like, so recognizing that you were pushing yourself too hard versus I'm in the zone, right? I think there's the drawing people reference is a bell curve. So like when you hit your top, you're at your optimal functioning. But if you push too much, then you fall down the other side of this hill, right? Versus, oh, I'm not even meeting my full potential. And so it was a graph of optimal stress is what this was, a graph of optimal stress. So here's where I'm most productive at the top of the bell. Here's me going into a landslide into like depression, anxiety, sickness. And then here's me never meeting my potential on the other side, right? So for you, maybe there was a warning sign of like, I'm pushing too hard. I've exceeded my potential and now I'm sliding down into something I don't want to be in.
Yeah, because Friday I was like, oh my, I thought, you know, it was disturbing. I was like, am I going crazy? No, but then I find out it happens to a lot of people. So, you know, so I'm looking for that optimal, like, how do we get, what do you call it, balanced, right?
Yep. That's now, what I call
it. My coach, Larry Broughton, says, just call it what it is. So you have this slide deck that you're going to share with us?
Yeah. Are you still open to that? I can share it now.
Yeah, let's
do it. Let's see if this helps people, and you'll have to let me know if they say anything or have questions as we go.
I will. I'll be looking at the comments here.
So to answer your question, Joe, we're going to talk about how to move from workaholic, which is that far end of the balance, right, to well-balanced, of like it's on a scale or a spectrum. Because I think this is a choice every day to recognize our warning signs and then make sure we're working on that self-care that you mentioned. So for the people here on your live here, you know, this is me, therapist, wrote a book this year in the middle of COVID about workaholism and well-balanced, and that's what we're going to touch on a little bit today. So hopefully this makes sense for everyone. So I think you and I have had this conversation a couple times, but like, what does a driven entrepreneur look like? Who are the people most at risk of burnout and self-care being obsolete or absent? And you and I have said, that's us, right, Joe? Like, this is us. We're driven. We don't like to be idle. We like having lots of creative projects. Yes?
I wore it like a badge of honor.
Yeah.
Like exactly. I can work 80 hours a week. Like
it's nothing.
like I'm Superman until I started getting older and I started crashing.
Yeah. So for a lot of people, they're going to say that this is like the person who's kicking ass, taking names, who's making a name for themselves in the community. And so for a lot of Americans specifically, this is like that badge, like you're mentioning, that badge of honor of like, oh, a driven entrepreneur is a good thing. But what if it isn't? Or what if we're celebrating something that creates the workaholic culture that we don't really want? So the workaholic culture, for those of you here on the live with us, this is something that's being talked about more often now that we're in COVID. So the book I referenced is Celeste Headley's book called Do Nothing. And she goes through a historic look at all these different points in our lives that over the decades, we've had workaholic culture become the norm. right? So Brene Brown says we're wearing this badge of busyness, like it's a badge of honor. Why is this a thing? Why do we celebrate it? And part of it is that we have no disconnect from work, right? You and I can check our phones. We can check our emails on weekends. We get notifications at all times. It's a big deal. And we don't have a lot of boundaries around that. So the most fascinating thing from her book that I like to reference is that we used to expect that text messages were the fastest form of communication, right? You get a little ping up on your screen and you have to answer it. But now we expect emails to have that same rapid response. And we expect emails and text messages to be responded to in 6 minutes or less. So Joe, when you're in your zone and you're up at like 10 o'clock at night, how's this look for you? Like if you send an email to someone, are you hoping they respond?
I send the email and then I stare at my phone.
So you do. You expect a response.
Of course. Of course.
And so it's tricky. This is why we're burning out, is we don't have work-life separation, especially if we're working from home right now with COVID. So workaholic culture is a part of the equation to balance over burnout. So what does a workaholic look like? Well, Joe, you mentioned a minute ago that for you, it was getting in the zone, but then not recognizing that you were kind of running yourself into the ground, right? You got really tired. You started to fall asleep at your desk. Those could be symptoms of being a workaholic, is that we don't notice the signs. We're just too in the zone to notice. For some people, they'll celebrate things like, I'm a workaholic because I have 4 jobs, and that's a cool thing. Or we've honored this hustling culture of like, we have to have a side hustle. So again, depending on who we're talking to, workaholic could be said with pride, or it could be said with concern of like, ooh, you're not healthy. It just depends on who we're talking to. But the question is, what does this potentially lead us to? Burnout. So Joe, I know you were with me when I talked about symptoms of burnout. There's at least 40 symptoms of burnout out there, including some of the things you and I talked about today. Things like we're not sleeping enough, or we're sleeping too little. It could be that we have headaches or irritable bowel syndrome. We're losing our hair. We have acne outbreaks, things like that. And then on the other side, most interestingly enough, with COVID, now we have more cracked teeth. The dentists are seeing more cracked teeth than they've ever seen in just this 7-month period of COVID. So we're gritting our teeth. We're getting really stressed. We're grinding our teeth at night. So many different things. Do you remember what my personal favorite burnout symptom was, Joe? Last time we talked about this?
Road rage.
Yes. It's a symptom, guys. This is crazy.
I cured road rage. You want to know how?
You don't drive?
I sold my car.
Yeah, that'll do it for sure. I mean, if you're in New York, you probably
no
don't
more road rage.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So for some people, that's the cure. But like a lot of people, myself included, had no idea that that was connected to burnout, that an elevated road rage is a symptom of burnout. So fascinating fact for those of you listening in.
That thing with the teeth was fascinating.
Yeah, that study.
Like, wow, that makes sense.
Right. So like for people who are tuning into this broadcast with us, maybe they're thinking about personalized symptoms for them. You know, is it that they get pale? Is it that they lose weight? Is it something related to avoidance or escapism into video games, movies, or shows? You know, we all have our ways of coping with burnout. And so those 40 symptoms come back into play. Are there any questions from our people so far, Joe?
No questions yet.
Okay.
But a lot of times people post questions or things afterwards. So if that happens, we'll make sure that I get you the thread.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is where, because you've heard me talk about this before, Joe, this is where we talked about that badge, right? We got to remove that badge of busyness. We have to take it off and not wear it with honor anymore. And one way we can do that is to redefine this idea of self-care. Because as a therapist, we talk about self-care all the time. In fact, it's gotten a little commercialized, right? It's out there everywhere. Social media, people talk about it on their feeds. It's just a big deal. However, if I were to ask you, Joe, what you think self-care looks like, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Walking, exercise.
So some physical activity. That's good. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Just breaking up, the day.
Yeah. Just the monotony of like taking a break, stretching.
Just getting up and like walking out to my terrace and then,
Fresh air. So that's where you're on the right track. What if I told you, though, that when I poll clients coming in and I say, are you doing self-care? What do they think of? They think of manicures and pedicures. They think of massages. They think of vacations.
That's personal care.
Well, it's possible. But think about this, Joe. Before COVID, these three things, manicures, pedicures, massages, and vacations, were possible. Right now, it might not feel safe to do those things, right? Let alone do we have the time or money to do them. So I had a lot of clients coming in saying, I can't do self-care, because in their mind, it was only those things. So we need to have them think about this from a rest versus restoration place. What can I do that feels restful, like hanging out at home, taking a nap, versus what restores me, which might be being in nature or gardening, like you mentioned for your family member. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. You know, I don't know if this is on the same topic, but I got two plants behind me here, and I feel like they're my children now. And I'm watering them. I started talking to them. Like, that's what my grandmother used to do. Yeah. But it's because I don't know. It's like I feel a connection, and it started with, I guess you planted the seed when you started talking about, nature, just being out in nature, because that makes me feel relaxed.
Right. Exactly. It's a huge one. I mean, for all of us, this is what's kept our sanity through COVID, is the luxury, hopefully, of being able to get outside, being in nature, a park, something.
As opposed, and I got to mention this so I could walk out into the street, and, I live in Flushing. It's a very busy area. I could walk out in the street and all you hear is honking, people yelling, shouting. That's not such a good feeling.
That's not so restful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I'm aware of it now.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is kind of the big concept I wanted to share with viewers today, is we need to redefine self-care from these commercialized, expensive things, whether it's time or money expensive, like we can't afford them right now, or we don't feel safe to do them. And so we need to get creative. We need to think of those restorative things like music, dancing. This is why people started baking so much during COVID, right? Like they were finding some joy. Could be naming your plants and listening to music with your plants. It's a study.
Haley, it's funny because Haley does her on Sundays. She bakes with her son.
Nice.
And it's so cool to just watch. And then she was doing this thing with the turtle. I forgot I don't know if she was doing it or what. And it would just be like, and she's doing a Facebook Live and she's just talking to the turtle.
Right.
But it was so relaxing. I'm like, I can't believe I'm watching a Facebook Live of a turtle.
Of a turtle. That's awesome. Because it's unique, right? It got people's attention. And this is why there are videos of people doing stuff with animals, or petting animals, or this might sound a little weird, but people watch those videos of people taking stuff out of their pores. Have you seen those videos?
No.
And all these comments will say, oh, this is so relaxing. And then the rest of us are like, that looks kind of gross. Why do I want to see what's in your pores? But for some people, there's something relaxing about it. So everyone is unique. I guess that's my what I'm trying to say, is that self-care looks unique to each person. There's no one and done.
Okay, because what I did after after I lost that day, I really felt like I lost a day. I said, okay, Sundays are Sundays now, like they used to be, like when I had a job with an office. And so for 2 weeks, and I can't say that I've been perfect, because it's really hard to not work, believe it or not, when you have it all around you at your fingertips. But
exactly.
So last Monday and this Monday, I feel energized.
Oh, good. It's working.
And, absolutely.
That's
so
good.
The 7 days, 24/7, I'm available now. You could call me on Sunday, but I'm probably not going to answer.
There's good boundaries. Good for you, Joe. Yeah, we gotta say no sometime, or we're never going to have downtime.
Absolutely. So we don't have any questions, but we have the material now. It's evergreen. I'm going to post it up on YouTube. I'll share it with you. And thank you so much for your time. Do you have any parting words, or how do people get in touch with you? How do they connect with you?
Yeah, I think the easiest way is through LinkedIn or through the book. So Perfectioner, it's the book over here behind me, because this was just a taste of what's in that book, right? So this is like the tip of the iceberg. We're giving you the sense of you have some things to work on. Now you want some ideas. There's 20 ideas in this book. So I'm hopeful that our viewers will take a look at that and see if it has value for them.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can find me everywhere on social media, mostly.
I'm just gonna, how about this? I'm gonna put all of your, at the bottom of your email, you have all of your links. How is that?
I do. It's a long email.
Well, no, let's see how this works.
Put them in there. Yeah, I'd love for people to just see what questions they have. Happy to answer those.
Okay, the links didn't come through. So we got, okay. I'll fix it. I'll put the link up there after we're done.
Yeah.
I'm still Facebook Live challenged, so.
Technology's been funny today, so it's not just you, Joe. Like, it's been weird all day today. So I'm glad this still worked out.
My friend Gina, she would love you, because we had a whole thing this morning with the technology. And she's a tech guru. So.
So she can fix it.
Yeah. All right, Khara, thank you so much. I've enjoyed this again. And that's our story. We're sticking with it, folks. Over and out. I will be back tomorrow. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Bye, guys.
Thank you.